I don't think anybody expected it to end up here, but it's a sign of just how serious this issue is, and also the trouble it could continue to cause for Rishi Sunak if his biggest ever donor is under criminal investigation.
Let's turn our attention then to the political week. Times Radio senior political correspondent Patrick Maguire is here. Patrick, we'll talk about the Keir Starmer interview in a moment. But first, just on that the breaking news about West Yorkshire Police. It's quite a development, this.
It is. So this story broke, of course, on the 11th of March when The Guardian revealed that Frank Hester had made comments in a private meeting in 2019, including, now infamously, his assertion that Diane Abbott made him hate all black women and that he wanted her to be shot, that he thought she should be shot. It turns out now those comments were referred, when that story was published, to the Metropolitan Police, who in turn referred it to West Yorkshire Police because the meeting took place in Leeds. And that's why West Yorkshire Police have announced this morning that they are investigating any potential criminality. The Labour Party are quite surprised by this development. Obviously, they've made a lot of hay out of this story. I don't think anybody expected it to end up here, but it's a sign of just how serious this issue is, and also the trouble it could continue to cause for Rishi Sunak if his biggest ever donor is under criminal investigation.
I mean, we keep using the word allegedly, but Frank Hester has apologised for the comments as reported. He hasn't denied saying them. So it's a slightly weird thing that the police are investigating comments that the person who said them admits to saying them.
Yes, he apologised for making those comments. He was recorded making them. They were leaked by a whistleblower. Whether Frank Hester's apology changes the course of the police investigation or indeed has made it more likely is another question. But politically, this is not ideal for Rishi Sunak, given we have that other $5 million donation from Frank Hester pending its declaration in the electoral register.
And on the Diane Abbott question, what's the latest on her status?
There was some suggestion earlier this week, picked up rumblings that Labour might be making moves to restore the whip to Diane Abbott. Remember, Diane Abbott suspended 11 months ago for that letter to the Observer newspaper in which she said Jewish people didn't face racism their entire lives, as she said Afro-Caribbean people did. She compared it, of course, to the prejudice suffered by people who have ginger hair. She too apologised for those comments. Earlier this week, I reported that Doreen Lawrence, mother of Stephen Lawrence and the Labour peer, Keir Starmer's advisor on race relations, had criticised the Labour leader at a meeting of black, Asian and minority ethnic MPs and peers earlier in the week. The other big discussion point there was between black MPs and Keir Starmer's chief whip, Sir Alan Campbell. They criticised him for going slow on disciplinary investigations involving black MPs, including Abbott and Kate Osamore, who was suspended from the whip in January, and accused the leadership of going slow on these cases. Kate Osamore suspended for nearly 3 months now, Diane Abbott for nearly a year, in a bid to marginalise the Corbynite left. Now, the Labour leadership deny that, but the Diane Abbott thing is engendering a lot of discomfort among Labour MPs across the waterfront, across the entire ideological waterfront of the Labour Party, and of course in the shadow cabinet. Angela Rayner, deputy Labour leader, called for her to get the whip back last week, and lots of shadow cabinet ministers privately share that view.
So that's plenty of headaches for Keir Starmer. You've written your column today about his hinterland. He likes sport, but famously likes music, particularly classical music. What do you think he'd have made of the rock music which kicked off his appearance on Nevermind the Ballads?
I think
the Sun's new online show.
He's more into jangly indie stuff from the 1980s. So if they teed up a bit of the Smiths or the Wedding Present, he would have liked that. I think it was that was the music he left behind in Surrey and went to Leeds and started listening to much cooler indie stuff.
Is it Orange Juice he was a fan of as well?
He was a big fan of those two great Scottish indie bands from the 80s, Orange Juice and Aztec Camera. Big fan of the Smiths, big fan of The Wedding Present. Loves his reggae as well, Desmond Decker and that sort of thing. And, of course, his classical. And this is the sort of key to Keir Starmer. It roots him, his friends say, in a world away from politics. He retreats and listens to classical music very intensely at the end of a long day. But the political lesson here is about Keir Starmer playing music. Keir Starmer was an accomplished flautist in his youth, but eventually concluded, well, I'm not going to be the best at this, so I may as well quit. And friends draw a parallel to his approach to politics, which is he got there by practicing really, really hard, while others appear to be able to do it effortlessly. He makes judgments on whether things are worth his time, whether he can achieve things quickly. And people do say to me, they wonder, don't be surprised if Keir Starmer does Jacinda Ardern, does Nicola Sturgeon. But that's a question to consider after the election.
Yeah, so let's not start talking about him standing down.
Down to it from a job he's not been elected to.
Yeah. Well, let's talk then about this interview that he did last night with Harry Cole on the Sun's new politics show on YouTube. Never mind the ballots. Good name. He was asked about a lot of things, drugs and terror groups. But here he is being asked about by Harry Cole about, because of his love of football, so he's got views on football, the New England kit.
Was it wrong for Nike to change the cross of St George on the back of the New England kit?
Yeah, I think it was. And I think
What
it's
was it
hard.
they were doing?
Look, I mean, as you know, I'm a big football fan. I go to England games, men, women's game, and the flag is used by everybody. It is a unified, it doesn't need to be changed. We just need to be proud of it. So I think they should just reconsider this and change it back.
All right.
I'm not even sure they can properly explain why they thought they needed to change in the first place. But one more thing on that.
Go on.
They could I reduce the price of the shirts. I think
we can all get behind
pounds.
All get behind that.
Now, the thing that struck me, and lots of people, we've had loads of messages in saying, leave it alone. There's loads of other things we should be talking about. It's a sign of a shift, I think, in Keir Starmer's approach, that he went in studs up, to use the jargon, on an issue that previously he might have just said, well, it's up to them and I'm not going to get involved. And, there's a little bit of the sort of Tony Blair tabloid journalism in there.
Well, it shows, as you say, very good news judgment. It's been leading, obviously it was on the front page of The Sun this morning. It's been leading bulletins across the broadcasters as well. And you're definitely right to say in the early phase of Keir Starmer's leadership, currently researching a book on this, so I've been sort of inhabiting that world, Keir Starmer would have felt that had he made that comment, there would have been a massive backlash from within the Labour Party and might have shrunk away from that question. Indeed, might not have realised that you can generate lots of coverage about yourself as patriotic, etc., by saying something like that. The other thing as well is, think about the substance of the comments. That is a Labour leader saying without embarrassment and very straightforwardly, the cross of St George is a unifying thing. Consider Emily Thornberry 10 years ago saying, taking that famous picture in Rochester, and that Labour had that collective cringe over the
Emily
English
Thornberry
flag.
was on the media about this morning. She was on Sky News, and they dug up the flag that she was, stunned by or surprised by or something, whatever it was. The other thing he was asked about, and this is obviously slightly more pertinent, was Harry Cole challenged Keir Starmer on his past as a lawyer, which obviously he's lent on quite a lot in the past, including giving legal advice to the terrorist group Hizb ut-Tahrir.
But you chose to represent the terrorist group.
No, Harry, come on. You know how it works in our legal system. But it is very important that everybody is represented. Now, if you're putting to me that you want to take that away, or you think it's a good idea...
I'm just asking whether you regret any of these people you represented. Let's start with
It used to be a sort of basic tenet of Conservative Party philosophy that our legal system was fair, where people would have...
choosing to defend Hizb ut-Tahrir in the European Court of Human Rights, stop them being banned from Germany, did you take money for that?
Yes, it was a case where I was asked for... I didn't actually represent them in court.
You advised their case in court. You were contributed to their legal defence.
Lawyer gives legal advice.
Yeah, to terrorists.
That was my job.
It's interesting. I mean, it struck me as the best... It was a strong question from Harry, but the best defence I've heard from Keir Starmer, on this question.
And also, you say defence, and he was offering defence, but what struck me most about basically every question Keir Starmer answered, apart from the question of his alleged or non-existent drug use, was his self-confidence and his unflappability. That's not something we've seen, or not something we saw from Keir Starmer in the early phases of his leadership. And I think you're right that was a very self-confident defence of his work as a lawyer. And when I read a column on this in the Times a few months ago, speaking to Labour advisors, there's always been a split at the top of the Labour Party on how damaging this stuff could be, or rather how to handle it. There were a group of shadow cabinet ministers about a year ago who said we shouldn't be banging on about Keir's legal career because it will invite questions like the one we've just heard from Harry Cole. And others say, no, we should just take on these questions because people are intelligent enough to understand how lawyers do their job. It's not a personal endorsement of the clients they're representing necessarily. And maybe turn the conversation onto what, say, Rishi Sunak was doing, or attack Tory lawyers for what they were doing. He didn't do either of those things there, but I was struck by just how self-confident he was in that defence. And it's quite difficult to come back on that if Keir Starmer is just saying, no issue here. It's like a doctor treating a patient, was the phrase he used.
It's interesting, really interesting. And you do wonder if he sort of came across better almost by going into a slightly more confrontational conversation with the Sun, not necessarily natural bedfellows for him with the Labour Party, rather than, his musings at a New Statesman salon, which could seem a bit underwhelming and a bit, you don't really get a handle on him. He seemed a bit more pumped up. Oh, very good. Thank you very much for that, Patrick Maguire. Patrick Maguire, the Times Radio senior political correspondent.